Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to The Global Current. I'm Trevor West.
And I'm Liam Scollins.
Today in news, Pope Francis comments on President Donald Trump.
Germany moves to legalize medical marijuana.
Mexico threatens to withdraw from NAFTA.
In analysis, the implications of France's Socialist Party primary.
Then, Zanel Njapa brings us an interview with Dr. Larry Greene from the Edwin R. Lewinson Center for the Study of Labor, Inequality, and Social Justice.
And now, Adeline Patterson reports on Pope Francis's comments about President Donald Trump.
According to Huffington Post, Pope Francis, in a recent interview with the Spanish newspaper El País, claims he will wait and see the results of Trump's presidency before passing judgment. This interview took place on January 20th. While making a point to abstain from premature judgment of the Trump administration, Pope Francis also gave a warning. This warning cited the dangers of populism, which is typically manifested when a political figure claims to represent the interests of the common people. Possibly the most striking element of Pope Francis's recent interview was his use of Hitler as an example of the disastrous results of populism. According to BBC News, Pope Francis stated, "Hitler didn't steal power, his people voted for him, and then he destroyed his people." Some news sources, such as NBC News, claim Pope Francis made these statements specifically in regard to European populism. Following Trump's inauguration, according to NBC News, Pope Francis sent prayers and well wishes to Trump with the hope that his decisions will contribute to the advancement of human dignity and freedom worldwide. These recent statements by Pope Francis contradict a previous degree of animosity between the two figures. In February of 2016, regarding Trump's desire to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, Pope Francis claimed, "A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges, is not Christian."
When it comes to the care of our common home, we are living at a critical moment of history. We still have time to make the change needed to bring about a sustainable and integral development, for we know that things can change.
According to NBC News, Trump angrily replied that the Vatican is ISIS's ultimate trophy and alleged that Pope Francis was a pawn being used by the Mexican government. Despite this past disparity, Pope Francis is withholding judgment and will form an opinion once he and the world have had a chance to see the outcomes of Trump's presidency. For The Global Current, this is Addie Patterson.
Up next, Priya Bahe brings us a report on Germany's decision to legalize marijuana for medical use.
On Thursday, January 19th, German parliamentarians voted unanimously to legalize marijuana for medical purposes. According to Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster, the law will come into effect by March 2017. Hermann Groh, the federal health minister, presented the draft legislation to German cabinet on Wednesday, January 18th. Groh told the Telegraph at that time, "Our goal is that seriously ill patients are treated in the best way possible." Groh had previously released a statement to Deutsche Welle acknowledging that cannabis was not an inoffensive substance, but he stressed that cannabis would be available from pharmacies only on prescription, adding, "Costs of using cannabis for medical purposes will only be met by health insurance companies of the critically ill if no other form of treatment is effective." Though small quantities of marijuana are not often prosecuted, the law still prohibits marijuana possession in Germany. Recreational and medical use of cannabis attracts controversy from opponents who fear a rise in crime related to abuse of marijuana and the potential for addiction or dependence on hard drugs. For this reason, German parliament wants to limit the drug's availability while also ensuring quality. Groh told CNN that specially supervised plantations will be established to grow cannabis, and until then, Germany will only import medical marijuana. Despite international distaste for the drug-related treatment, Germany joins a large group of countries that have also legalized the drug, at least for medical purposes. In countries like France and Canada, as well as in several United States states, purchasing cannabis with a prescription is already possible. The German legislation was surprisingly approved unanimously by both the left and the right parties. Opposing parties in Germany, such as the Greens and the Left Party, have fought for legalization for a long period of time. Marlene Mortler, the German government's drug commissioner, previously lobbied for the ability of patients to buy cannabis from local pharmacies, provided that they have a doctor's prescription. It's a great addition for patients who have waited for this for a long time, Mortler said to Deutsche Welle. In a statement to CNN from the German Federal Ministry of Health, the German parliament says that as of March 2017, people with multiple sclerosis and other severe illnesses will be able to obtain the drug legally with a prescription. Doctors will also be able to prescribe marijuana or cannabis to patients for whom the drug could alleviate symptoms, such as chronic pain or nausea, or who may see a positive effect on their disease progression. They also add that the costs of the dried cannabis flower buds and cannabis extracts will be covered by health insurance, but only for patients who have no other treatment options. For the Global Current, this is Priya Bave.
And now, Mallory Finch reports on Mexico's threat to leave NAFTA.
On January 24, 2017, the Economy Minister of Mexico, Ildefonso Guarda, announced Mexico could pull out of the North American Free Trade Agreement if a renegotiation of its terms does not benefit Latin America's second-largest economy. According to the NBS News, this was in response to a question asked on a talk show early that morning about President Trump's comment on renegotiating the NAFTA agreement. Earlier in the week, he withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The economic minister and foreign minister will be talking with President Trump this week about immigration, trade, and security. The president of Mexico was scheduled to meet with the president at the end of the month, but withdrew.
We should look to have sufficient clarity as quickly as possible on what kind of proposals could come from the United States with regard to relations with Mexico, but we must also be aware it's not very probable there will be such a radical proposal because the benefits are for both economies.
About $1.4 billion of revenue is traded between Mexico and the U.S. borders. 80% of Mexico's goods are bought by the U.S. Also, Mexico holds the second largest spot in purchasing American goods, according to the New York Times. Breaking the NAFTA deal will both affect Mexico and the U.S. This is Mallory Finch reporting for the Global Current.
Next up, a report from Liam Scollins on the French Socialist Party's primary elections and how it will influence the French presidential election.
On January 22nd, former French Prime Minister Manuel Valls and former Education Minister Benoît Hamon emerged as the frontrunners in the first round of the Socialist Party's presidential primary. Valls and Hamon will face each other in a runoff on January 29th. The victor will become the Socialist Party's nominee for the French presidential election, which will be held in April. Hamon garnered 36.1% of the vote, while Valls won 31.2%. The Socialist Party, known as PS, has lost the support of millions of French voters and become unpopular under the current president, Socialist François Hollande, who decided to not seek re-election, according to the Wall Street Journal. President Hollande's unpopularity has deeply wounded former Prime Minister Valls, who has resigned his post in order to seek the PS nomination, and left many leftist French voters feeling alienated from the PS establishment. In light of this, Hamon has capitalized on the PS's rightward ideological drifting that has occurred under President Hollande to galvanize support for a stronger leftist agenda. While Valls has quietly attempted to distance himself from President Hollande, Hamon's rise signifies that the PS is fractured, according to The Liberation, a French newspaper. France 24 reports that Hamon advocates for liberal and leftist policies like universal basic income, the legalization of marijuana, and increased protection for workers. Many commentators have compared Hamon's platform to the ascent of those of Bernie Sanders in the United States and Jeremy Corbyn in the United Kingdom. As Hamon has slammed Valls for centrist pro-business policies, Valls has tried to paint himself as a more credible candidate who can appeal to a wider base of voters. Debates between Valls and Hamon have become heated as they discuss the different visions that they hold for the future of the party and for France. Valls is viewed as a more moderate candidate. However, this reputation has caused many voters who fear the rise of the far right to favor Hamon, who falls further to the left. During a debate, Valls describes some of his views.
Nous sommes dans un débat essentiel et que j'ai évoqué tout à l'heure la nécessité de vérité.
We are in the middle of an essential debate, and we have a responsibility to be truthful, but we must be imaginative to deal with the issues that we face.
Il faut entraîner la société. Il faut lui donner en effet un destin collectif. Mais
if France were to do what you propose, Benoit, we would inherit a large amount of debt, as would other European nations.
comment réagiront les autres pays.
We, the left, are credible when we govern, and I would like to protect that credibility. However, we must deal with the world as it changes.
S'adapter, accompagner les mutations du monde.
According to France Info, the infighting over who will represent France's largest left-wing party reached a boiling point on Wednesday when the PS's Secretary-General Jean-Christophe Cambadelet sent letters to both Valls and Amon. In his letter, Secretary Cambadelet stressed that the party must show a united front. Despite the enthusiasm that many supporters bring to the primary, it is unclear whether the PS stands a chance against other parties in the general election. France uses a runoff system to elect presidents, where the top two candidates move to a second round. To further complicate the divisions of France's left-wing politics, a left-leaning independent candidate, Emmanuel Macron, is running under a new party, En Marche. According to the Financial Times, centrist Macron will likely take many of Valls' supporters if Hamon wins the PS nomination. What does this fracture in France's left wing mean for the future of French politics? On the other side of the spectrum, France's largest right-wing party, Les Républicains, nominated a rather conservative candidate, former Prime Minister François Fillon. Additionally, the far-right party, Le Front National, will run Marine Le Pen, an extreme conservative and Eurosceptic who has garnered unprecedented support for her generally marginalized party. Fillon's credibility has been called into question in recent days as he and his wife are under investigation for the fraudulent use of public funds, according to Reuters. Although this potential scandal could have been used as ammunition by Le Pen to impugn the character of her main rival, she recently said in an interview,
"It doesn't mean you're guilty, but it allows people to throw dirt on other people in the media. I won't get involved in the politics of smear campaigns."
As the first round of the presidential election draws closer, both Fillon and Le Pen are expected to win about 25% of the vote, and Macron is projected to win 20%, according to the Express. However, once the Socialists officially choose their nominee, these numbers will likely change. Regardless of who wins the French presidency, one fact remains clear. The French left must decide whether it will continue to drift rightward as it has under the leadership under President Hollande and former Prime Minister Valls, or serve as a counterbalance to the increasingly emboldened extreme right. This is Liam Scollins reporting for the Global Current. Finally this morning, Zanel and Joppa brings us an interview with Dr. Larry Greene from the Edwin R. Lewinson Center for the Study of Labor, Inequality, and Social Justice.
A good morning to all of our Global Current listeners. Social justice and equality are ever-relevant topics, and more so in today's world. Acknowledging this, Seton Hall University continues to encourage dialogue, research, and scholarship on these prominent topics. Now, through the Dr. Edwin R. Lewinson Center for the Study of Labor, Inequality, and Social Justice, these themes are further analyzed, questioned, and challenged. This morning, I'm joined by Dr. Larry Greene, a professor at Seton Hall University's History Department. African American history, the Civil War, and the Second World War among his specializations and interests. Dr. Larry Greene, welcome to the Global Current, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so now let's get straight into it. You not only worked alongside Dr. Lewinson, but you were also well acquainted with him. Please tell our listeners just a bit of a background about him and who he was.
Well, Dr. Edwin Lewinson taught here for many years. I believe he joined the Seton Hall faculty in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And I met him while a student here many years ago. I did my doctorate at Columbia, the same institution that Dr. Lewinson did his doctorate at. But when I met him, he was teaching a number of courses on American social history, American intellectual history, and African American history. In fact, he began the course in African American history here. So Ed, as we all called him, was a wonderful man and a scholar activist. Ed was a member of Brooklyn CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, which is one of the pioneer civil rights organizations in the 1960s, although it was formed earlier. But it took part in many of the landmark marches, voter registration drives in the South, and most notably the Freedom Rides of 1960-61. Yes. So he was a member as a young man in some of the pioneer civil rights activities. He went to many, many marches in the South. I know this from hearing the stories and reading about him and his own firsthand accounts of these civil rights activities that he was involved in. Yes. And his interest in civil rights continued for many, many years. And in the latter stages of his life, after he had retired, he was a member of a local civil rights organization called POP, or People Organized for Progress, which has been involved in protesting police brutality and so forth, and racial discrimination, even before Black Lives Matter came along. They were involved in protesting these kinds of things locally. And I remember giving a talk before POP, People's Organized for Progress meeting in Newark at an African American church. And Ed, who is not African American but Jewish, was there and a member of People Organized for Progress. So he has a long history of civil rights activism. But in addition, he was interested in labor, workers' rights. He was interested in women's rights. He was a contributor to NOW, National Organization of Women. And he was also an advocate for the rights of the disabled. I should mention that Ed was blind almost from birth. I think around the time he was perhaps maybe 3. He completely lost all sight. It did not stop him. He continued to graduate from high school, college, graduate school, and participate in all of these activities. And I remember Ed and his guide dogs.
I read about that.
Hebe, Hooper, and Nelson. Now, I might not have them in the right order, but I remember them. And Ed's office was right in this corridor, where we are today.
Yes.
Not in this particular, 2 offices down, right in this corridor of offices.
Well, it really sounds like a very inspirational man, which leads us right into, you spoke a bit about, what are the exact values or facets that he exhibited that are now going to be carried through as the basis for the center?
Well, I think the center, and you can get this from the title of the center, is interested in social justice issues. And so they're interested in issues relating to inequality. That could be inequality racially, in terms of gender, ethnicity, religious, any type of discrimination that makes any particular group or aspect of society less than equal to another. So we're interested in issues of labor and inequality and social justice. I think the title is Inequality, Labor, and Social Justice. And so our inaugural event, which will be on February 27th, will focus on this issue of race and policing in the community. And our speaker will be Dr. Jelani Cobb.
Well, yeah, you definitely, I'll give you a chance to speak a bit about that later, because I'm sure our listeners would be very interested to attend, as am I. And so can you just let us know, because we know that this is not something it was my first time reading about it, which made me so interested. Can you just let our listeners know, as well as myself, as to what phase the center is currently in at the moment?
Yes, well, Ed passed and a couple of years ago, and he left a significant endowment to Seton Hall. He bequeathed a certain endowment to Seton Hall, and that endowment is serving as the endowment for the center here on Seton Hall's campus. And what we're trying to do is to provide programs an education to the Seton Hall community and the general public on the kinds of values that Ed was interested in, which was promoting concepts and ideas surrounding equality and social justice. He was very much interested in the plight of the poor, ordinary workers, women, the disabled, racial minorities, all those that have had obstacles to their progress and who have faced discrimination. And so to that extent, we are planning a variety of programs, I think, over the next few years. But our inaugural program will focus on this issue of racial equality. So this is actually our first year in which the board is active. You know, it takes a while administratively to set these things up. So this present academic year, 2016-2017, is our first year of actual operation. And fall semester, we were more or less setting up the structure and getting things started, forming an advisory board, etc. And so the February 27th is our first inaugural event, and I think quite symbolically, it is also Black History Month. So that's very, very...
It falls quite,
yeah. We have a couple of other activities also involved in the month of February.
Yes, and that actually leads me into my next question of what we can expect. I know you can't really name drop or anything of the such maybe at this point, but what can we perhaps look forward to going into the future and we can expect from the center?
Well, let's just talk about what we have coming up for this month. Okay. For this month, we are planning a sort of teach-in on race, in which we ask faculty members to set aside, this is on February 6th and 7th for those classes, for professors to discuss in their classes issues relating to race. We have on the web made available a set of readings to our faculty that they could choose from, although they can select their own, to discuss in their classes various aspects of race in America. So the Lewinson Center is cooperating with the Center for Faculty Development to sponsor this on February 6th and 7th. Also, we're cooperating with the Faculty Development Center, which is presenting on February 9th at 5 o'clock in the Chancellor Suite, Junius Williams, who is a scholar activist from Newark. And so I think that's very, very important. He is well known. He has written a book concerning Newark and civil rights, even going back to discuss the 1967 riots in Newark. Yes. And so he's well known within the greater Newark community, and known at Rutgers as certainly a scholar as well as an activist. On February 21st, we are having a showing at 5 o'clock in the Nursing Amphitheater. That's room 113. We're having a showing of Jelani Cobb, his film, a PBS film, Policing the Police. And this is a documentary focusing on Newark. Although it obviously has larger importance for the entire nation as a whole on this particular question of police-community relations. But the film itself, the documentary itself, will focus on Newark.
So sort of using Newark as a microcosm of some sort.
Yes. And we're cooperating with the Faculty Development Center again. That 21st was the Lewinson Center. The Faculty Development Center and the Lewinson Center are cooperating on a faculty-student symposium on the issue of race, and that's going to be between 9 and 12 o'clock in, I think, room 110 of Stafford Hall. In February 27th, our large event will be Jelani Cobb himself talking at 5 o'clock in Jubilee Hall Auditorium.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Sounds very exciting.
Yes, yes.
So also, you mentioned a lot about the center that you're going to be working with, but what other schools within Seton Hall or colleges are you currently working with, or are you hoping to collaborate with in the near future?
Well, we hope to collaborate with all of the other colleges. For the moment, our advisory board is drawn from the various departments within the College of Arts and Science. But we look forward to cooperating with all of the colleges as we move in a variety of different directions and topics over the next several years.
I think that's definitely important, because I don't know if I have the right to speak on behalf of the School of Diplomacy, but I know that our dean would very much love to work with you and the center going forward.
And I'm sure we would love to work with him. So we look forward to working with all of the colleges, College of Nursing, College of Education, and certainly the School of Diplomacy in the future. And there are probably many areas in which we could cooperate.
Yes, where we can find common ground. Okay,
and in fact, the Faculty Development Center, the Center for Faculty Development that we are cooperating with, is not only the College of Arts and Science, it's also university-wide. But we are looking to work with the specific colleges in the future.
Yes. Okay. Well, the Dr. Edwin R. Lewinson Center for the Study of Labor, Inequality, and Social Justice promises to play a critical role at not only Seton Hall University, but for the surrounding community in themes relating to civil and human rights. We're certainly looking forward to getting involved and witnessing the growth and prosperity of this center. Dr. Larry Greene, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to participate in your program, which I think is very interesting, and I hope that you are getting many listeners, because this is something that we need to do to sort of educate the American public and Seton Hall student body about global developments.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, then that concludes our interview for today. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Zanele Njapa. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Global Current. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Trevor West.
And I'm Liam Scollins.
Same time,
same place, next week. The Global Current is brought to you by the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University. Our executive producers, Liam Scollins, our associate producers, Morgan Mountain, our news editors, John Trudeau, our analysis editors, Marissa Hutton, our technical producers, Trevor West, and our interview segment is produced by Zanele Njapa. The Global Current theme song is Acid Jazz by Kevin MacLeod. You've been listening to The Global Current on WSOU 89.5 FM, Seton Hall's Pirate Radio.